Elon Musk's $1 million giveaways to swing state voters are safe, for at least for now. A judge in Pennsylvania this morning declining to block it. Here's what Philadelphia DA Larry Krasner's team had to say at the courthouse.
Elon Musk and his PAC, AmeriPAC, filed legal papers to have the case removed from this court to federal court, and we will proceed to federal court, and we will address the issues there and seek to have the matter remanded back to the state court. After all, this is a case that involves state law issues.
Judge Angelo Foglietta said he would place the lawsuit on hold while a federal court considers whether to take up the case. Musk was ordered to attend the court hearing this morning, but declined to appear. The Philadelphia DA filed a lawsuit against Musk and his pro-Trump America PAC. He argued they're running a, quote, illegal lottery scheme to influence voters, and asked the judge to stop it. Musk's bid to move the case to federal court frees him to continue the giveaway because the matter likely won't be resolved until after Tuesday's election. Meantime, election lawsuits are piling up across the nation. This as the nation enters the final days of the 2024 presidential race. Here to assess is Jacob Eiser, professor of election law and anti-corruption at Florida State University. Jacob, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to see you again, Stephen.
Elon Musk's $1 million prizes were going to registered voters who signed a petition for his America PAC. I want to get your thoughts on whether or not you think this is legal, and what is the government's case?
It's a tricky question. Vote buying is illegal. That is, say, giving someone something of value to vote in a certain way. Musk has essentially put layers of interpolation that make it legally uncertain. He's not paying voters to vote in a certain way. He's paying them to sign a petition to register in swing states. In general, paying people to register is also illegal. We don't want money influencing the political process. By making it a lottery, he adds another layer of uncertainty. So what courts will have to untangle is how each of these conceptual interpolations affects the legality of this. If it weren't such a highly polarized environment, it might even be possible to see this as a noble gesture. But given that Musk has also inserted himself into the debate in a polarized way, it becomes increasingly difficult to see it as truly neutral.
What would you say is ultimately the strongest argument in Musk's defense?
He could argue that he's not instructing voters to vote in a particular way, nor is he making a direct payoff. I think the direct payoff argument is weaker because the lottery is, if not a payoff to each voter, the possibility of a payoff. The fact that he's asking them to sign a petition instead of to vote or to register to vote could be argued to move it out of the legal category that is specifically prohibited. It will ultimately come down to the court to how they decide to categorize it. But I do think Musk is on medium thin ice right now.
Now, there are several election-related cases happening across the country as we speak, some involving allegations of voter fraud, while others have to do with voting rules. Do you expect some of these cases to extend beyond Election Day, and how many will ultimately be litigated before?
So there's a background problem here. It's one of the virtues of democracy is that it resolves political questions quickly and hopefully without violence. The longer these election disputes go on, the less we enjoy the certainty that democracy confers. Could one of these disputes delay the outcome of the election? We should all certainly hope that there will be a decisive and consensus winner at the end of the election cycle. Given the number of swing states and given the closeness of the election, it's impossible to predict which, if any, of these cases could prolong it. I would say the status of polarization and the very quick exchange of information are making this increasingly contentious. But I think there's a more directly legal issue. In the past few decades, and in particular since the COVID-19 pandemic, there's been a proliferation of legal rules that we're still exploring the ramifications of. Mail-in voting, advance voting, questions of that do not have particularly long lineages. So these won't merely be disputed. There might need to be genuine legal innovation to resolve them. That's not a recipe for voting disputes being resolved quickly.
Now, a Chinese national was just charged, a Chinese citizen, for voting illegally at a polling location in the state of Michigan, a battleground state. How do you think this sentencing might play out? And are there loopholes in our current electoral system that allow for such foreign nationals to register and actually cast a ballot?
Citizenship is not, in fact, necessarily a prerequisite for voting. The access to the polls is a question left to state law. The deeper question is, I think, here one of foreign influence, and two, how strictly individuals should be punished when they vote, and in particular, if their voting, even if not in compliance with rules, seems to be merely an innocent mistake regarding their eligibility, as opposed to an attempt to exert some type of malign influence. There's constant concern about the possibility that foreign influence, whether through campaign funding or less frequently through foreign voters, will influence the electoral system. I would be surprised if individual vote lawsuits like this directly affect the outcomes of election. It's more likely to potentially have chilling effects in the patterns and the willingness of people to vote if they're uncertain regarding their legal status. And at the end of the day, it's very difficult to sort out what those effects are at a systemic level. We simply don't know if people are not voting because they're afraid of being penalized. It's not clear when that ever comes to light.
Now, this question's sort of, I think, complicated a bit and sort of gets into the weeds, but there's a question of whether or not his vote, it's already been cast, if they're going to be able to even, take it back before Election Day. What is the process like? I mean, it seems like a forensic nightmare to go in and find that one vote, and, what is the process?
Again, that's going to vary state by state. We had a taste of this in 2000 with the Florida election, where questions about dimpled chads, hanging chads, when a punch counted, had to be assessed by state rules. There's a deeper problem trying to extract and remove a single ballot, though. Ballots are generally confidential. We see this as a way of protecting voters from intimidation and from retaliation based on their political choices. So going back and removing a single ballot is extremely difficult because you often might have trouble identifying which ballot should be assigned to which voter. This is why ex ante, that is to say, election integrity up front, is so important, and that trust in the system needs to not be resolved through litigation that occurs after the elections, but because people trust the system going in. And I think this is the greater problem that we're seeing in a highly polarized, extremely information-rich environment, information and potentially erroneous or misinformation-rich environment. If voters don't trust that the system they're participating in has integrity, it undermines the ability of democracy to serve as a mechanism for generating consensus.
I think you bring up a lot of very important points. The Taiwanese, they vote same day, not much mail-in, maybe none, no mail-in, no absentee, and they do it for the sole reason of election integrity and to, retain the confidence in their system. Professor Jacob Eiser, really appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
It is widely expected that Republicans will gain control of the Senate regardless of how the presidential race shapes up. But why is that? NTD's Melina Wisecup joins us to break down the numbers.
Why is it so likely that Republicans will take the Senate after this election? Well, when you look at the numbers alone, remember there are 34 Senate seats up for grabs, most of which are held by Democrats. Democrats need to do a lot more work to hold on to their already slim majority. They need to defend 23 seats. Compare that with Republicans only needing to defend 11 seats. Republicans only need a net gain of 2 seats to take back the Senate, meaning they need to hold on to the 49 seats they currently currently have and then flip 2 more. They have real opportunities to do that in 2 states, in West Virginia and Montana. Well, why is that? Well, when you look at the polls right now, both of the Republican candidates are leading. In West Virginia, more so, Jim Justice is leading by about 34 whopping points in West Virginia. The Democrat incumbent over in Montana, Jon Tester, is trailing his Republican challenger by about 3 points, giving Republicans a slight edge over in Montana. Democrats have essentially given up on West Virginia. They're not throwing any money into this race, no time campaigning there. They're handing it over to Republicans, essentially. As for Montana, they're trying very hard, Democrats are, to hold on to that seat. But it might be a long shot, and I'll tell you why. Well, when you look at how popular Trump is, first of all, in the state of Montana, he won by about 16 percentage points back in 2020, a huge margin of victory. Republicans are hopeful that will trickle down the ballot and flip that Senate seat from blue to red. Couple that with the fact that Jon Tester is not as popular as some other Democrat candidates elsewhere. He won by just about 3 percentage points back in 2018, making him very vulnerable here. What this means is Republicans could come out of this thing with a bare bones majority simply by taking West Virginia and Montana alone if all of the other races go as expected. That's even without winning any of the toss-up races. So what are Democrats trying to do about this? Well, they're eyeing 2 big red states of Florida and Texas. And people might wonder, why are Democrats so focused on trying to flip these 2 red states? Well, when you look at the details, these states may not be as red as many may think, and I'll show you why. When you look at Florida, for example, we're going to look at the margin of victory that former President Trump had in 2020. Not a very big win, not as big as what we saw over in Montana with 16%. Here, Trump is in the single digits, so comparatively, not a very big win for Trump there. Then you look at Rick Scott. He only won this seat by 10,000 votes. Democrats only need a few more Democrats, thousands more, but a relatively small number of Democrats need to turn out in order to flip this seat from red to blue. And couple that with the fact that abortion is on the ballot in Florida. Democrats are hopeful that having abortion on the ballot will drive out more Democrat voters and hopefully flip that seat for them. That's what they're thinking. So we'll see if Rick Scott has enough name recognition to be able to hold on to that seat. Now over in Texas. Excuse me, we're going into look at the margin of victory that Cruz had. Once again, a small margin of victory here for Ted Cruz. He's a well-known Republican across the nation, but he's not as popular as one might think in the state of Texas, just around 2 percentage points that he won by back in 2018. And then you couple that with the fact that looking at right now, Colin Allred has been continuously outfunding Ted Cruz just the first 2 weeks of this month, as a matter of fact. Allred had $12 million that he raised. Compare that with Ted Cruz only raising $10 million. Once again, that was in the first 2 weeks of October. So Democrats are pouring a lot of energy into Texas, a lot of money into Texas, because they think they have a real shot at flipping this seat. So what this all means in the grand scheme of things, if Republicans are in fact able to hold on to Texas and Florida, just by flipping the 2 states of West Virginia and Montana alone, they could come out of this with a bare bones majority, meaning that those other toss-up races, if Republicans win just a few of them, those will then become cushion to support that new Republican majority. Steve, back to you.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.